Did you know forgiveness is actually one of the most selfish things you can do? The immense ways that this practice benefits you will blow your mind. So, today we're going to take a look at the metaphysical reasons to do it, what Jesus taught us about it, and how it can actually help your physical body by being willing to forgive those who have hurt you. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel. It helps other people like you find Spirit Outspoken. And for now, let's dive in. All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of Spirit Outspoken. Today, we're diving into one of the most common aspects of Christianity, which is forgiveness. But today, we're looking at it with a twist because we're going to be talking about all the ways that forgiveness actually benefits you. So I don't know about you, Jasa, but I have struggled with forgiveness for a very long time.
Oh, it's like the hardest thing for me.
Yeah,
ever.
and partly because, we've talked about this, I value authenticity.
Yep.
So sometimes it feels very fake,
Mhm.
right? Where I'm still angry and forgiving someone just doesn't feel real to me.
Absolutely.
And I don't like that. It feels
Mhm.
yucky.
Mhm.
I've also seen through friends and other people who have been in different Christian communities how forgiveness has excused really poor behavior. And
Oh, yeah.
almost to the detriment of the person doing the forgiving,
Mhm.
where they're staying in bad situations, they're tolerating behavior that they really shouldn't be tolerating. And so we thought it would be really helpful to come on today and just talk about what is forgiveness really? Because the truth of the matter is, and we don't hear this message enough, forgiveness is really about us. It's about releasing the hurt and the anger and resentment so that it doesn't eat away at us and we are able to live a fulfilling, joyful, happy life and not
Yes.
be bogged down and anchored down by these really heavy emotions.
Yes.
And we're going to get into forgiveness does not mean reconciliation in every
Mhm.
case. It does not mean that we don't have boundaries.
Mhm.
It does not mean that we just let someone get away with something that's illegal or harmful or abusive. But it really comes back to that goal of releasing these hard, heavy feelings within ourselves and within our spirit.
Yeah, which like we've touched on this previously, the topic of in Christianity, we're told that it's important to forgive. You must forgive. And that can feel forced. And I think you hit on this really well in our old meta episode, but we're not always given the tools to do it. But we're almost taking it one step further and being like, this is actually for you. It's for our own well being, peace, and physical health. And I don't know. I remember hearing once that like living in the past, and that's where forgiveness really pulls us is like into the past. Like when we're not able to forgive, we're ruminating on the things where we've been betrayed or how somebody was fake or whatever we're hung up on. You're literally energetically living in the past because you're experiencing all of those emotions from a period that isn't in the now and the here and now. So not only is that like taking away from your present moment, but it's like sucking you back into the past. And like we don't want to do that, right?
No.
So a very important time. And you must have known I've been having a doozy of a week. Okay. And I'm good at a lot of things. Forgiveness is not one because I am like, listen, I'm like, you know this. I'm very easygoing. I am like benefit of the doubt. I laugh a lot of things off. I like it really takes a lot for me. But if somebody crosses a line with me, it's very, very hard for me to get to a place that I can forgive. And maybe this is what we need to talk through today is like, this isn't necessary reconciliation,
Right.
something different.
Yeah.
So I think this you must have known.
But I'm with you. I have a very hard time if I have been vulnerable with you and I feel like I've been burned.
Oh yeah.
It is like the wall goes up. Give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm very trusting up front. But once I've been burned, like emotionally, even if I'm still
Yeah.
pleasant, I am protected. It's like I have my emotional armor on.
Yeah.
You know?
You people get the pleasantries.
Yes. Yes.
I would say the same for me. Hi.
Yeah.
How are you?
But again, it doesn't have to mean reconciliation, right? Okay, so let's dive in. Let's start with some verses that I just think really help us understand this concept of it's not just about the other person. This one I love, Ephesians 4:31-32. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. So I love the beginning part of this, of get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger. This just gets at the root of why we do this practice.
Mm.
Because like we said, how many times I've had so many times where I'm upset with someone and like you were saying, it robs us of the present
Oh, yeah.
because mentally I will loop and loop and loop and loop and loop about what was
Fighting
said
fighting
or
other
what I should have
battles.
said or what I, you know what I mean? It's so exhausting and draining. And
Yeah, you're fighting continued arguments in your head that, like,
and
aren't actually happening.
it's so stupid and
Yes.
pointless.
No, I know.
Okay, and then the next one, Romans 12:19. Do not take revenge. It is mine to avenge. I will repay, says the Lord. So
Mm.
2 years ago, I did this forgiveness retreat where we focused for a day on forgiveness.
Wow.
And the one thing that I loved that they said forgiveness is about freeing yourself from the rage and anger, but also it's about entrusting God, entrusting the universe to handle the justice. And I love
I
that.
really like
It
that.
doesn't mean that justice won't be had. It doesn't mean that they won't have consequences for their actions.
But
But
God will do it in his own
but
way.
leave it to him. And this does not mean, I want to clarify, if someone has done something illegal, that we don't take them to court or
Yeah, right.
take action.
Yeah.
But like the outcome of that,
The
we release.
emotional hang up.
Right. So it's no longer like I need to do this, and I will take the steps necessary to make sure that justice is
Yep.
done. But I am releasing whatever happens
I like
and
that.
trusting that to God and the universe to just work itself out.
See, like, I think that that's really important because for me, I feel like that's my biggest holdup in forgiveness is I really care about truth
Yes.
and facts. And there is nothing quite like telling me something happened that didn't happen or saying I said something that I didn't say or whatever. That to me is rage fuel. And we've talked about this. I think you and I both have had past lives or past experiences of being silenced or words manipulated or something. And it ignites a survival instinct in me that almost feels involuntary. But if I'm leaning and surrendering this and saying, I don't have to prove my truth. I can navigate this in a emotionally detached way. I could do what's right. I could provide whatever facts are needed. I can clarify things, especially when there's high stakes involved.
Mhm.
But I don't need to stay up at night worrying what the outcome is going to happen as a result of said
Oh
situation.
my gosh, that was so well said. And it's such a good reminder for all of us because so often we try to take basically what is God's job and do it ourselves. And there's so much freedom, again, in just releasing that and allowing that to be what it is and
100%.
not putting that burden on ourselves. So it's a twofold process, right?
It's a twofer.
It's a twofer. Okay, so another important aspect of forgiveness, right, is what happens when we hold on to these really dense, heavy emotions within our body,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Because the truth is, when we are lugging these things around, and the best way I can describe it, as I referenced earlier, is like an anchor. I mean, it really does weigh you down when you're in a conflict and you're just hanging on to something. It's so hard. But what it causes us to do is it causes our body to go into fight or flight, right? And
Mhm.
so our cortisol levels
Spike.
spike. So now we're not sleeping as well. We might be more prone to overeating. We're more stressed. We're more anxious. We're more likely to be depressed. And we're more likely not to exercise and have all these really negative health impacts,
Dude,
right?
cortisol is like no joke
Oh my
because to your point, it's one of those where it has like a blanket effect on everything, but it also creates this domino effect. And this is super vain to say, but like the higher your cortisol is, you're like not only are you more prone to eat more, but also doesn't it affect your hormones and your metabolism?
Everything, because it's all connected. So just like you said, it's like pushing one little domino over.
So it makes you
And now
eat
it's
more
like,
and carry more weight. And I'm like,
yeah,
dude, that person's not worth it, man.
I know.
We're not worth those couple pounds.
Not worth the fupa. Okay.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Not a revenge fupa. We're going revenge abs.
Oh my gosh. Are there any other things or like physical things that come along with it? I mean, I feel like for me, I feel the lack of forgiveness. I feel the panic around like, well, what's gonna and not even the lack of forgiveness, the tumult of whatever that situation is. I feel it in the pit of my stomach. I automatically feel my shoulders relax. So it's like I'm carrying the stress and I'm physically affecting my stomach. And like that area is your solar plexus. That is like your confidence, where your life force is. So think about that. That whole area is like angsty.
And from a physical perspective, like in functional medicine, they say all roads lead back to the gut. It impacts your brain. It impacts the way your mood, your hormones, your sleep, your everything. So, yeah, when we get that pit in our stomach, I mean, emotions are held within the body. We learn that from our somatic
Yes.
psychotherapy stuff.
Yes.
It is. It's so important, and everything is so interconnected. So, it really is self serving to be able to work through those things.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've gone in a little bit and we've talked about what forgiveness is, right?
Yeah.
Releasing and then allowing God to handle the justice.
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk about what it's not, because I think this is super important, you guys. And a lot of people, I think, in Christian communities have twisted this to allow poor behavior to continue, to allow people to go back to abusive, unhealthy, toxic situations. And they think they're doing the right thing because I'm forgiving, I'm a Christian, this is what we do.
This is
No.
this is what we're obligated to do, and this is
Yes.
how we're judged. That, I think, is the fear. If I don't do this, then God is going to judge me, and I am now. We're gaslighting ourselves. Is what this is.
Yes. So let's just touch on this. So, forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. And what I mean by that is if you are in an unhealthy, toxic situation where the other party is not willing to put forth the effort to improve or change, you have every right to distance yourself. Like, if there's one thing I want people to get out of this episode today, it's that you are a divinely created child of God. As any parent knows, as me as a mother would know, I would never want my child to stay in an abusive relationship or in a relationship that was making them emotionally or physically unwell. And God is no different. It doesn't mean that we can't love from afar. And love is a very, full term. I mean, respect, like we can respect and even love. Look, I had a brother who had addiction issues. And anyone who's gone through that process knows at some point, for your own sanity, you have to get off the roller coaster ride.
Yes.
Where it's like, if you aren't willing to go get the help that you need, I can't do this anymore. And I love you tremendously, but I have to, for my own safety, emotionally, back up. And it's so hard to do. And I was so close with my brother when we were young. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. But I had to make that choice because I could not continue to just sit and be involved in the drama day after day. It was just too stressful and too upsetting for me. So those are the type of things that we're talking about. Like, they can be really hard situations, and I empathize with people when they're in those, of like, loving from afar is a really hard thing to do sometimes because you want to go in and help and fix and do all these things, and there's some situations that you just can't.
Absolutely.
So that's just one example. There's lots, right? But I think it's really important for people to hear that message because you have value and you are worthy and deserving of a life that is full and rich and joyful. And it's important that we don't allow other people to rob us of that.
Yes, right. And you can't put yourself into a situation where you're constantly draining your energy in an attempt to love, right? But like, you can love somebody and you can forgive, I'm using air quotes, forgive their behavior and detach from that, but that doesn't mean that you have to stay engaged in that.
Right. Yes.
Is that right?
Exactly.
I'm learning. I'm a quick study. And obviously this goes without saying, like, abusive relationships, sexually, physically, emotionally,
Yes.
like there's you guys, like, hello, common sense, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I get that it's not common sense. It can be really complicated situations. But if it comes to any imminent harm, it's just go.
Yes.
You don't need to forgive or dance around that.
Yeah. And you can work through that
Yes.
later.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So not only is it necessary for our own well-being, retaining our joy or happiness or peace, but it's actually supported scripturally. So you pulled the scripture Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. That is like a commandment. That is like, you must protect your heart.
Yes.
You must, right? Not in anger, not in frustration, but you could say, I love you, but we need to create some boundaries and distance. So I
Yeah.
feel confident about that, guys.
And I think you told me this. Like, sometimes love is putting up a boundary. Sometimes love is saying the hard thing. Sometimes love is doing the hard thing. It is not easy when you love someone
Mhm.
and they're choosing to do really harmful things sometimes.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, it's the hard thing. It's
Yeah.
the hard thing is being very direct and being like, I am no longer going to accept this. I need to create a boundary for my own well-being. That is a very hard thing to do. whether, and especially if the person's close enough in proximity where it's a friend, a coworker, a family member, where you have to put a boundary up. It's actually easier probably to let them to continue to do the bad behavior. And then you're just trying to manage yourself through it like, oh, I don't need to let that get to me. And oh, they probably didn't mean it that way. Or,
Yeah.
insert whatever here, when really what we need to do is have a very direct conversation, let them know because they haven't changed their behavior. Well, now I need to change my behavior
Right.
in order to create the right environment for us to exist peacefully.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think I just very passively aggressively said I will be the bigger person. but but anyway,
No, it's so true. And it really is hard. And especially in some situations. So we also have like this internal pressure. I'll just speak from my own experience again with my brother. It was
yeah,
like I had this internal struggle of, well, he's my brother and we're family. And isn't family supposed to help each other? And I had some of those guilty feelings a lot of like, I
absolutely.
should be there and I should do this. And this is what a good sister would do. And it can feel like you're leaving them out to dry. But the difference is when people continually make decisions and choices that impact your life, you have a right to protect yourself. And that, so to encourage people to really be still and quiet and look and reflect at how much this is impacting you and what it's
Yes.
taking from you.
So
And if
yes,
it's taking more than it's giving, you have every right to protect yourself.
100%.
Yeah.
So you've shared that you lost your brother,
Mhm.
and we wanted to talk a little bit about self-forgiveness. I'm sure that self-forgiveness had to be a part of your journey and navigating this. Will you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I like I said, it was so hard to know how to help. Um, I'm probably going to get emotional. In so many ways, for a long time, I felt guilty, like I had let him down. And it was finally realizing and accepting that the most loving thing I could do was walk away and love him from a distance because it was like the only chance I had at him possibly rethinking things. And it was the only way that I had at, when you live with someone like that, your whole life is impacted by their decisions. And so it's such a messy, complicated scenario because I had a lot of resentment for my brother because there were so many times growing up where it was like my graduation or my wedding day or whatever. I was always like worried about him coming in, being high on something or being drunk and, like embarrassing me. And then the whole day again is about him. It robbed me of so many like important milestones. Um, my graduation from college, he shows up and he's like half out of his mind. Say my wedding, I would have loved to have had him walk me down the aisle, but I was like, there's no way. It's all those little things. And I felt so resentful for so long because I just felt like everything's about you. Like I can't even get one day where your bullshit isn't impacting and overshadowing the good choices I'm making. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Oh, you're going great.
Um,
And then I'm sure it was a process after he passed to be like,
yeah,
how do you?
yeah. Look, when my brother and I were young, we were super, super tight. And it was always like there were these things happening, whether it was the divorce or my mom getting remarried or our dad dying. And it was always like, we have each other, like you and me, like we
Yes.
always have each other. And I felt really abandoned by him. Like, how dare you do this to me and leave me? Now I have no one, or I felt that way. Um, and so I had to work through all of that. And it's crazy with addiction. It's different because it goes on for so long. I feel like I just like gradually grieved him over years. So when he died, I was actually in some ways relieved
Absolutely,
because
totally.
he was finally at peace. And it's like, if life is going to be this hard for you, I hope that you now are just at peace and you're free, right? Um, but it also stirs up all that stuff. And I really had to spend a lot of time working on my own and with the help of a therapist to sort through all of those mixed emotions of resentment and sadness and anger and grief over what could have been. That was the hardest thing for me actually, is like, what could you have done? What could our relationship be like? What if you hadn't done this and you were married with kids and we could actually get together and, all the things that it could have been. Um, but it was in those therapy sessions that helped me realize that I didn't do anything wrong, that protecting my peace and protecting my heart is loving to both him and to myself.
That it took courage.
Yes.
And I think that's what people need to hear. It's the right thing is often the hardest thing.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of courage to be the person that says, I know this is really hard for both of us, but this is what we need.
Yeah.
Right. And, you've learned so much about love and forgiveness and grief through that experience. And it's hard too, because you're mentioning sadness and grief and resentment, but forgiveness is sort of one of those threads that is intertwined into everything.
Absolutely.
It's the most complicated because even if you want to,
Yeah.
even if you have every intention to, it still sometimes feels so counter to what we naturally can do. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think just making it safe for people to understand that it's a complicated process and forgiveness doesn't necessarily have to happen overnight.
Oh, yes. That's
It
so
was a
important,
process
Shay.
for you,
Yeah.
right?
And I think in some ways it's still going on,
Yeah. Mhm.
I do, I hadn't thought about that before, but I think you're really right, I think forgiveness is something that we choose, and we have to keep choosing it. Keep choosing it, keep choosing it.
That's the realization. It's something that you're going to have to work through and it's going to evolve. And you are going to be triggered by something that unwinds a whole nother spiral of, well, but if he was here right now at Christmas, I could have a completely different situation. Or I have a life event and I wish he was here. That is going to solicit feelings of frustration, anger, unforgiveness. And you got to work at it all over again.
It's so true.
But that's the process.
It is the
It's
process.
choosing it's choosing yourself
Yes.
over and over again, and I think that's the difference. It's not choosing to do the charitable, air quotes, thing for the other person. You're choosing yourself over and over and over again in an impossible situation because you have a life to live and you have a family to get through, and it would only steal from you to keep it going, but it doesn't mean it's easy.
Another really important aspect of this, and one that I really had to work through as well, was self forgiveness, right? And I think sometimes that's the hardest one for all of us to work through, is forgiving ourselves for mistakes we've done, things we wish we would have done, could have done, should have done. I think those can be the hardest, but we also are deserving of our own forgiveness. And that's so important, because I know, in this scenario that I was talking about, even with my brother, there were certain things I regret, or I wish I would have shown up differently, or I would have shown up with more compassion. Um, and that's all part of that process too, right? This beautiful letting go of mistakes and wrongdoings.
I also struggle deeply with self-forgiveness. I am so critical of myself. If somebody else makes a mistake, I'm like, "Oh, whatever." Honestly, I think like, "Thank God it wasn't me." Like, that is my thought process because I'm so terrified of making a mistake. And I've come a long way. But I would say, like, this is something that's caused me emotional pain. Something as very simple as being 5 minutes late to my kid's field trip, or I looked down and wasn't paying attention and I missed my son's first hockey goal. That traumatized me for like 48 hours, and I was totally looping in my brain. And what was that? That was me telling myself that I was not a good mother. I was screwed up. I messed up. And if I had observed a friend do that, I would be like, "Oh my God, you're amazing. It's a point in time. It's fine." But it's something that I've really struggled with. And I have to show myself and remind myself through that, like, I am a human being. I'm going to make mistakes. I am not a perfect parent, and I say that to my kids all the time. If they're upset now, I practice. I've worked with this in therapy.
Yeah.
If I'm late to something, you know what? Mommy runs a little bit late.
Yeah.
Don't you worry. If I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'm going to be somewhere. But I just run a little bit late. I got a lot going on. I got 3 kids. I got a job. Just communicating to you. And I create space for my imperfection. I name the thing. Mommy's not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm gonna fuck up. Okay,
Yeah.
a lot.
Because I think especially in motherhood, right? I mean, that's where I have felt the most shame, guilt ever is, my gosh, I did the thing that I swore I would never do, which,
We all do that.
where it's like, and then you
My
have
kids
this,
will never be on iPads. Yeah,
yeah, it's like shame spiral of
I
like,
know.
oh my God, I lost my shit on my kids. Oh my God, I'm the worst mother, like.
I know. I'm creating room for growth and imperfection where I'll have a very real conversation where I'm like, I was yelling and I really don't like to yell, but it also is so hard when you guys don't listen. Can we work together? Because sometimes I feel and it kind of normalizes the experience of family dynamics too.
And I was going to say, you're modeling forgiveness for them.
Yes.
You're modeling forgiveness of your humanness,
Humility
right?
and
Yes.
self-awareness of being
Yes.
like, okay, yes, I messed up. Let's acknowledge this. How do we work on this together?
Yes.
Yes.
And it's modeling what that looks like for them too, which is so important. Like just repair, right?
Repair. Just repair.
I am so sorry. I did not handle my big feelings well. I will work on that. Can you work on when I ask you to pick up your shoes? Like,
And it's never too late.
Yes.
It's never too late. I may have said this on the podcast before, but it was like one of those things that really struck me. Say you had relationship issues with your parents and you're now a grown adult. Imagine if your said parent called you now and said, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Wouldn't that mean the world to you and just melt everything right now?
People underestimate the power of a straightforward apology.
An authentic acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement of I fucked up and I am so sorry.
Yes.
I would never want to hurt you and I did and I am so sorry.
100%. It melts.
It melts the
Resentment.
anger. It's like and I think generationally that's a really hard thing. That just wasn't a thing for our parents' generation and the generations before. You did not apologize. It was almost like I think they saw it as weakness or somehow maybe like lowering the levels of respect. Like I'm the parent,
Yeah,
you respect
absolutely.
me,
And especially in more like fundamentalist or more conservative Christian base, it's very much like honor your father and mother, do as I say, right? But anyway, yes, you're right. It can be a generational thing. So that requires forgiveness too, right? On us to be like, it's a different time, it was a different way. I understand, but don't underestimate the power of I'm sorry and acknowledging it doesn't matter how long it's been. Yeah, in men's fences, baby.
Okay, you guys. So, last but not least, we're just going to touch real briefly on the practice that you and I have found to be incredibly helpful. Because, as we talked about, we grew up in the Christian faith, forgiveness, 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 thrown down our throat since the time we were knee high. Yet, no one ever tells you how. But the one practice that we learned about is actually a Buddhist practice. And we have a whole episode on this. I forget which one it is, but we'll link it.
It was one of the earlier ones.
Yeah. But we have a guided metta meditation. And what I loved about metta meditation is it basically is just using a baseline level of respect for yourself and for the other party involved in honoring them as a human, showing them basic respect, and being able to move out of that stuck pattern you were talking about, that looping. And so it's all about showing your self love and then showing the other person love. And I'm using love in air quotes, right? Like respect, honoring them as human. And it goes through this whole lovely process. And it's really an amazing tool. And it, honest to God, helps melt away some of those really angry, hard feelings that we can lug around with us. So if you have trouble forgiving, I would recommend check out our YouTube channel, check out the show notes. You can listen to a whole episode on it and then do the practice yourself because it's amazing. I go to that every time I'm struggling.
Yes.
With forgiveness.
I love it. I've done it multiple times. And one thing that one thing I've discovered recently that's helped me, and I think you can even apply it in your meditation, right? Because what you're saying is just finding that baseline thing that you can anchor on around respect and seeing them as a human. And it's this concept of our souls all belong to God and we are a reflection of God. And, Jesus talking about what you've done for the least of these, you're doing for me. Right. So I think that has helped me even recently when I am really struggling or if I'm feeling a lot of emotion or anger or frustration towards an individual, I have to take a step back and say, regardless of how I am feeling, that is a soul that belongs to God.
Yeah.
Even if it's like, can't stand that person's face right now because they're driving me crazy. Underneath
Yeah.
is a soul and a spirit that belongs to God.
Yeah.
And we're all one, right? I really believe that. I believe that in some essence, like our souls are all some type of fractals of God. And if that's true for that person, it's true for me, it's true for you. So I think we also live in this illusion that we're so separate and it's you against me and me against you. And if you just bring it down to what you know inside, not what you have been totally programmed to believe in this 3D dimensional world, it extends so much far beyond that. At the end of the day, are you carrying that resentment with you to that afterlife? No. So let it go now. Let it go now, right?
The one thing I've loved, we've talked about the work we've done with the Akashic Records. And Candace, who is our guru lady, was explaining to me about some of the people in my life and how it was so funny because it's like the most challenging relationships in my life are here to teach me something. And that has given me such a different perspective and an appreciation for those hard relationships of like, look, yeah, they're pushing me, they're testing me, they're breaking me to a point where I actually have to change some ways that I am operating for the better to help me grow. And sometimes it's really helpful to look at even the most challenging people in our life and go, how has this interaction changed me for the better? Like, has it caused me to step up in ways that I've been scared to step up in before? Has it caused me to use my voice in a way that I've never used my voice before because I finally had it? It can be an invitation for some serious growth as well.
It's growing pains. Growth is so uncomfortable.
You guys, well, if you found this helpful, if you've had a hard time forgiving yourself or others, we hope that the meta meditation and some of the tools and insights that we've shared with you today will be helpful. If you know of anybody that you think could use this talk, be sure to share it, like it, post it, do whatever you need to do. But we would love to see you here again next week. And for now, have a wonderful night.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you're ready to take your spirituality to the next level, be sure to check out our website, spiritoutspoken.com. There you can download free educational resources, read our latest blog posts, and join the Spirit Outspoken community.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Spirit Outspoken to stay up to date on news, happenings, shenanigans, and all things Spirit Outspoken.